Did you had any influences leading up to how you're figuring your voice out?
Well, my thought process was I'm leaving myself open to learn and really dig into the history of who came before. I can say Mean Gene was my favorite, and that's who I modeled myself after. Yes, but he wasn't the only one. I love him. I even have a pop of him in my bedroom. I didn't want him to be the end all be all of what I wanted to sound like, or Lillian Garcia as well. I want to listen to who is out there to see what has already been done, what the sounds are, what are they doing, just really pay attention to what they're doing to enhance the role that they're already in, and then figure out for myself and play around with it, because you do have to experiment a good bit to figure out what you want to sound like, how you want to come across.
All right, there is Dr. The Wife. We talked about that on the beforehand. Like, we're both from Jersey. It blows my mind that it took 1,500 miles for us to be here.
Right? And we even
like,
had wrestling in our backyard, and we still had to come all the way to Texas.
Yeah, exactly. Because like we had a recording before, and we kind of name dropped, like, "Where are you from?" I'm like, "I'm from Jersey City, New Jersey." Like, and you were like, "Wait, what do you mean?" I pointed my hat. It's like, "Oh, didn't even see that." I do have a question too. What's the one thing that Texas is good at that you'd like to bring back to Jersey, and vice versa?
In general, frontage roads. Frontage roads, frontage roads. I can't tell you how tiring it is to have to pay the toll, leave the exit, only to go all the way around into in town just to come back around because you missed the previous exit. Yeah, frontage roads. And I hate tolls. So Texas does that the best, and I would love Jersey to figure that part out too. Oh my gosh.
Because like I remember when I first started driving, and it's kind of like hilarious where every time I would go like anywhere, and it's either the turnpike or the parkway.
Yeah.
Nothing else. If you go to the shore, you have to cut through the parkway. You have to pay the 35. I think it was 35 when I left. 35 cents to throw it at the change machine for it.
Oh, it's a lot more now.
What?
I was just down there in 22. I was down there. They've increased the prices on them stupid tolls. When I got up I was going toward Jersey City because that's where I have family.
Yeah.
I was amazed when it was like $5, $6, $7. I'm like, whoa.
No way.
Yeah, it was serious. I'm like, I didn't go through the whole state's tolls. Yeah, it was serious getting off that. Yeah.
Oh my, because it's like it's wild. Like,
and what's gross, I missed my exit for Jersey City, so I had to take another one and do the toll twice.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
So you basically got charged twice for no reason.
Yes, I did. Frontage roads are your best friend, New Jersey. You should try it.
That changed my life because Yep. And there's a panhandle, a jug handle. If you mess up, you take the U-turn. You can drive back without any retribution or anything whatsoever. How about the reverse? What's the one thing that Jersey has that you would like to bring here in Texas?
Wawa. I know we got our 7-Elevens. I know we got, our QTs and things like that. But Wawa, their hoagies. I mean, the breakfast sandwiches. Come on.
Because like double Dutch chocolate milk, for those who are not familiar with Wawa, if you go to a Wawa anywhere in New Jersey or in pretty much most of like the tri-state area, the double Dutch chocolate milk, like every time it never disappoints, and it's one of those drinks where you would drive late at night or in a concert, get a tiny little 16 ounce of that double Dutch chocolate, just down it. It's like, all right, cool, you're set for the next few miles.
Yep. I mean, that and the fact that if you live in South Jersey, you live so close to Philly cheesesteaks. Can't compare. Philly cheesesteaks.
All right, that's Gino's.
Argue how you want to, but there's no anybody can make a Philly cheesesteak, but you can't make it like when you live that close to Philly or Philly itself?
I am going to ask this too: Pat's, Geno's, or Tony Luke's?
That's a great question. We're going to double back on that later.
It's very hard to distinguish too, because
It's
like,
hard. Yeah. Because I
yeah,
mean, everybody has their preference. And then outside of that, I've heard people tell me Firehouse Subs. And I'm like, sure, great. There was one place though, we had, it was actually on my way to school when I was younger.
yeah.
Everybody went there. It was just a small little deli shop that made the best cheesesteaks ever. They always hit the
Oh,
spot. They had the best bread. They knew the ratio to meat, to onions, and to whatever else they put in there. It was the best. Oh my
yeah. We're gonna talk. We're gonna be here all day. We talk about.
god.
We're gonna talk about Wawa all night, but this is not the point of our
We're gonna talk
conversation.
Jersey Devils versus Flyers. Yeah.
You're gonna start a war on. So, but like at the same time, besides besides being here in Jersey, and especially with wrestling fandom, what was your first exposure into it? What was a moment or any show that made you realize, wow, the wrestling is for me?
Well, my exposure to it was probably like anybody else, WWE, WWF at the
Mm-hmm.
time. Watching them a whole bunch when I was younger on Saturday mornings. That was a big one for me where after all the cartoons were done, I'm sitting there watching wrestling. And then as I got older, it was Attitude Era, stuff like that.
Yeah,
But what got me back, because I did take a break for a while, went to school, did, live life,
yeah,
um, was when I was in Texas, married, and my husband got into Stardom. And a I can't think of her name right now, but her name is Maria Pachi was my, whoa, that's cool,
yeah,
and it started because he was doing his podcast, doing the commentary for that, and she was popping up and doing her interviews in Spanish, and I started translating for him because he couldn't catch all of what she was
yeah.
saying, and the subtitles weren't really catching it either. But doing that for a little bit, I actually started watching the show at that point, and I started to see other wrestlers that I really enjoyed, other female wrestlers, because at the
Mm,
time when I was younger watching WWF, then later WWE, um, there weren't a lot of ladies that I gravitated to that I was like, oh, that's cool. And I'm not disparaging any of the athletes that were in WWE/WWF because it depends on the time you were watching. I'm
mm-hmm.
not disparaging anybody, their favorite, or anything. I'm just saying that for me, I didn't see the ladies that I resonated with, but I did watch a lot of the guys. Like I loved watching Ultimate Warrior when he did his entrances. I loved watching Doink because I thought he was funny. I loved watching Sting. All of them. But then it was when we watched Stardom that I started to see ladies that I really enjoyed watching that were fun, um, that had the look, the physique. I just enjoyed all of it. And then from there, it went to going to shows because now I wanted to see them live, and I never knew I could do that. And granted, it was later on in life, but I did start going to shows. I didn't get to go to shows in Jersey, but I did do a lot in Texas. And he started going to a lot of the Inspire shows, which I didn't get to go to at the time. But my first exposure to a live show after watching it on TV a good bit and watching it internationally because of Stardom on on the internet was Mission Pro Wrestling. I used to go do a lot of those shows as well. And I enjoyed those. I enjoyed the relationships I made there with regards to just being a fan. Um, and from there moved on, like we were talking about earlier, we moved on and explored the environment of Texas wrestling, all of that it offers. We started going to Austin to watch shows. We started to go to
Mm-hmm.
Houston, Dallas, down to San Antonio. When we finally made it to San Antonio to watch Hybrid, because that was one of the ones that got us started got me started thinking about it. Um, it was their first show back. I think it was either January 1st or 2nd. I don't remember. But that's what got me started thinking about this could be a possibility because, of course, it's a school. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and what pushed me into it was an interview with a wrestler that basically said she watched others who were doing it and she wondered why she just didn't jump in herself. So that got me turning some wheels and going, I should consider figuring out whether or not I want to try this out and in what capacity. Because, of course, um, you could always jump in the ring and do the training, excuse me, and do the training for it. But I was not more, I was more interested on outside stuff, you know? So that's when I started to go to hybrid and start asking questions on what is the possibility. And the hybrid wasn't the only one. I just started asking other people questions about what is the possibility there. Um, the more I started getting involved, because I was also taking pictures for myself and sharing with wrestlers who were interested in it, the more I enjoyed being involved as a
Mm.
fan, taking pictures as a photographer. Again, I was an amateur photographer, so I'm not saying that for those professionals out there, I know what I'm doing. I was learning just to find more enjoyment and get more joy out of being a fan of wrestling, being a fan of the wrestlers in there, having a good time capturing those moments that otherwise when you put the camera down and you watch them, you're just thrown back and you're like, whoa, that
Mm.
was amazing, you know? Um, and then from there, it was just continue to watch wrestling on TV. It just brought me back to what I used to love when I was a kid.
Because it's interesting. I think you posted this a long time ago on Instagram when you had your certificate at hybrid. And what was it like to switch from a viewer of in professional wrestling to really learn the ropes and the basics to the point where hybrid took note of like, okay, Doctor the Wife has done all this. All right, let's let her run through the paces of graduating at hybrid.
Well, even before graduating, just learning with them, you start to get gain more respect for what they're doing. Like I said, I don't do anything in the ring per se as far as the wrestling part goes, but you gain respect for the fact that they do put their bodies on the line every day,
Mm.
not just on those days that they go to the shows and wrestle, but also when they go to the gyms and they build up their physique, when they go to the wrestling gym and practice with each other. They still do a lot of mental work to push through the pain. They do a lot of mental gymnastics to decide how they're going to win, because that's also something that they have to strategize. They go through a lot to make sure that they have the ability to not hurt each other, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
um, and still have a good match for not only them to be proud of, but to also encourage the fans to enjoy. So it was a matter of learning, okay, so based on the role that I want to fulfill, do I enhance that and help them continue to look like stars that they are, um, and not make it into a situation where, oh, look, it's me. I got the mic. This is what we are presenting and this is what we want you to enjoy. So, let's get into it and let's put our hearts out and enjoy what the athletes in the ring and essentially the warriors are about to do in front of you here. So you get a lot of respect for those folks, not just
Mm-hmm.
them, but the coaches as well, because they're giving a lot of their experiences in life, in wrestling, in everything, and sharing it with folks who are coming to them from all walks of life, from they just got out of school or are in school to they just got out of school to they have 9 to 5s, they have families, things like that. And they're coming to the same gym, equalizing themselves and just
Mm-hmm.
learning together. And that's what I wanted to be part of is essentially is learn with them and understand what would be the best way to show them in the light that not only they want to be shown in, but enhance it so that they look larger than life and sound larger than life as well.
Because you started in commentating, so um, where did that come about? While you're trying to figure out your place in the wrestling business, where did commentary kind of fell into that opportunity for you as you're trying to figure out what you're doing in the business?
Well, I already knew that I wanted to go in to do. I came in knowing what I wanted to do already. I came in, and it might have sounded strange, but I came in and I said, I want to learn how to do commentating, ring announcing, and
Okay.
correspondent slash interviewer. Because to me, it made sense to understand those roles because it gives you an opportunity to understand the different sides of wrestling, but also different sides of the wrestler. Because essentially, in commentating, you get to share what is happening as it happens. But not only that, connect the puzzle pieces because these wrestlers, um, a lot of them, their story of how they came to be who they are transcends beyond that one promotion. Sometimes it connects throughout the landscape of wrestling in Texas. So your job is to research and find out more about who they are and see if you can connect that and help the fans not only understand what's happening in front of them, but also how that connects to what's happening outside of there and what's going on
Hmm.
with that particular wrestler um, with other in other situations. So commentating for me, I thought was a great way to be a part of that. For ring announcing, the other side of that is now you're in a position where you are trying to enhance how they come and present themselves to the fans. They already know how they're going to come out based on the song, based on their look, because they work really hard on their physiques. They work really hard on making sure they are presenting the person that they want uh, to demonstrate or show in the ring as they are having their match. But how do you do that verbally while they are
Hmm.
visually showing that? So that's ring announcing. That's what I wanted to do is verbally share the emotion behind the excitement as well behind what people are seeing when that person bursts through the curtain. And then with correspondent and interviewing, now you're in the role where you're watching the shows, and in all three roles, you have to watch the show and really be invest
Yeah.
yourself. But as an interviewer or a correspondent, you have to watch closely and observe all the nuances of what's going on in the match in order for you not only just to take notes and use that to discuss with the wrestler who comes to you, but also to report on that when it comes time to recap what's going on at the end of the show or even engage with fans because that's another important aspect
Hmm.
of that is making sure that you take the time to talk to the fans and see what they think and share their thoughts with the world. And it's your job to help them, especially when they are a little skittish, to make them comfortable enough to do that based on how you ask your question, how you present yourself, how approachable are you as a person because you're also representing the promotion that you work with. And the show that you are on, you have to be approachable in order for them to feel comfortable enough to share whatever it is they want to share, especially that raw emotion on what
Hmm.
they just witnessed and how that made them feel, you know? So I came in knowing what I want to do. I just wanted to figure out how do I do that. And in order to learn how to do that, I really had to open myself up to the people who were in the hybrid school of wrestling, the coaches, even the students, and learn about them and learn from them so I could do the job properly.
How much of an influence out of those three? Of course, you've done things on your own, but to have a foundation as a commentator, as a ring announcer, and as a correspondent, like, did you have anything from legacy guys like the Mean Genes or the Lillian Garcias or Jim Ross? Like, did you have any influences leading up to how you're figuring your voice out in those three fields?
Well, I my thought process was I'm leaving myself open to learn and
Okay.
really dig into the history of who came before.
Mm.
I can say, oh, Mean Gene was my favorite, and that's what I modeled myself after. Yes, but he wasn't the only one. I love him. I even have a pop of him in my my bedroom, but I didn't want him to be the end all be all of what I wanted to sound like, or Lillian
Okay.
Garcia as well. I want to listen to who is out there to see what has already been done, what the sounds are, what are they doing, just to really pay attention to what they're doing to enhance the role that they're already in and then figure out for myself and play around with it, because you do have to experiment a good bit to figure out what you want to sound like, how you want to come across. Who are you in order for you to figure out how you want to present yourself? Because essentially that's what they had to do too. At
Right.
the beginning of their journey, they didn't just say to themselves, "Oh, well, I want to sound like him, and that's what I'm modeling myself after." I want to open myself up to listening to who has already done the job, because it's not just Lillian Garcia I listen to. I listen to the guys as well, um, not just in wrestling. I go to UFC and listen to them. I listen to the boxing ring announcers. I listen to
Okay.
Spanish commentators and listen to how they do it. I listen to Spanish ring announcers and listen to how they do it, and figure out what emotion are they conveying? How are they doing that? How invested
Okay.
are they getting? And how invested should I be getting depending on the role that I'm fulfilling? So I do a variety of um, I think a lot on what's out there, both in English and Spanish, to figure out what I want to do and how do I make myself a little different. Because I also want to stand out, because we already have
Because
a Lillian Garcia, we already have a Samantha Irving, we already have a Gene Okerlund, we already have a Michael
yeah,
Buffer. I'm not going to be Lillian Garcia 2.0. I'm going to be me.
because it shows your individualism too. Because oftentimes, because that's where I'm still, because I did ring announcing for a bit, and it's like, man, I want to be Tony Chimmel, and it's like, there's no organic transition to it. But like when I started shaping Chimmel into okay, and I did watch like a lot of like very old school like
Yeah.
WWE matches. I'm like, okay, how does the Fink do it? How does Chimmel do it? How does Roberts do it? But how can I make that into an individual ring?
Yeah.
Because the foundations are there, but like at the same time with what you're mentioning, it keeps you well rounded, but
Yeah.
it's still your voice at the end of
Yeah.
the day, whether it's ring announcing or commentating or doing these in the post match interviews. So like there is a foundation, but there's also okay, how do I elevate that to
Yeah.
make it to make it to make it your own, basically.
Right. And you also have to work with what tools you already have. For example,
Yeah.
I mean, in this situation, in all of them, you're using your voice. Um, for ring announcing, I have to figure out now, okay, what do I do when my voice starts to get a little sore and I'm still working? I now have
Mm-hmm.
to figure out, well, and love, because that's another thing you have to do is you have to be patient with yourself and how you do your stuff. And for me, when my voice at the beginning of the night is like this, but for the middle we're down here, how do I make that sound a little juicier so I can use that?
Right.
Because toward the end of the night you sound a little more husky, and yeah, okay, well, how do I use that? And then that's something that I have to figure out. And I'm pretty sure that's something that all the others have had to figure out, because they've had to um, go all night. Some of those shows last from the beginning of the day to the very end of the night, and they're going all day long doing the same thing.
We're switching over with what you're doing with United 210 and working with Stash and with Rob. How much of that lessons that you've learned to really elevate what United 210 is doing, whether it's ring announcing or if you're doing stuff for interviews, like how much of those lessons made you contribute to what United 210 is doing? And we'll throw in hybrid too, because they're kind of working closely together in that case.
Well, I mean, the lessons that I learned from United can't be discussed without saying what lessons that I learned from Hybrid as well, because I pick up stuff from both sides. And I'm constantly listening to my coaches, because they're also sharing their insight on things that I should do, directions I should go, things I should think about. And I take that information and I apply it into United. So when Hybrid gives me a task to do, and I do it to the best of my ability, if not, if better, because I want them to shine. um, I take that success and then I apply it to United, tweak some things, and continue pushing and making it better, so that way they also benefit. So it would be hard for me to say what lessons that I learned from United without talking about what did I learn from hybrid as well that I applied, and
Mm-hmm.
vice versa. Because what I learned from United, I also apply to hybrid, and all the other promotions that I work for. I take what I learned from each place and I apply it to the next one. And when I come back to a place, um, that's that much more experience and knowledge that I'm now putting on that particular production and that particular show to continue to enhance that. So now I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking ahead and asking for this, that, or the other. Where probably at the beginning of it, I probably didn't ask any questions, and I just went with the what was going on.
Because I think we're gonna bring up, because shout out to Mike Wilkes too, because like you guys are in tandem in the commentary team. I will ask this too, because oftentimes I've had commentators before, so this may be a similar approach or maybe different. The crowd's there in the yard or
Uh huh.
in hybrid schools, in the hybrid school of wrestling gym. Now, for the ones who are watching, whether it's in IWTV or if they're tuning in on YouTube, and you mentioned it, where how much can you convey a story to the ones who are watching on YouTube,
Right.
compared to the crowd who's already going over on whoever they're facing with?
So the idea is for those who are watching on YouTube, you want to make sure that the way that you're sharing what's happening is imagine that person is has their eyes closed, can't see, or is washing dishes. And I know I can relate to that because
Right.
sometimes I'll be watching a movie or a YouTube video or whatever, and the iPad or whatever the media is over there, so I can't see what's
Yeah.
going on. So when you're commentating, you have to make sure that that person can imagine what's happening based on what you're saying. For the folks that are in the room, sometimes they can hear you, and the goal there is how much of what you can say will enhance their good time. Because
Hmm.
I've had situations where people have come over and said, "I heard what you said, and that really made me laugh," you know, and that's
Ah.
yeah, I love that. That's fantastic. Me and Mike always pop for that because um, it's always fun to see that fans are listening while they're there and while they're probably in their heads talking about the show, they're now listening to us talk about the show and what little things we present because we might share something that they didn't even see that we might have caught, you know.
Mm.
Um, so it's two ways. We're making it easier for those at home to imagine if they're not watching but listening, because like I said, you could be driving in your car and just listening to it. And for those who are in the show, we're enhancing the experience for them and finding ways to continue to make them more involved in the show, make them laugh, make them more emotional. Because when there's moments like that as well, you have to convey the feeling that is being portrayed by the wrestlers who are really going at it in the ring. And it's not just Mike too. I mean, I work very closely with him. I worked with Kingpin Kenny. Um, there's a lot of folks that I've worked with that have a fantastic skill in commentating. That Best is another person that know exactly how to make sure that the fans both at home and in the room are enjoying the show. And if we can
Mm.
enhance it that much more, then we're making the experience that much better for them not only to enjoy at the moment, but for them to come back and enjoy with us.
Because like how much has, because I think I've been watching more of you and Mike in particular, but for anyone who has a partner for a commentator, how often do you guys riff each other to really enhance the experience during a show?
How much do we rip each other?
Riff.
Riff
Because
each other. Oh,
oftentimes
all the time.
there's a face commentator, there's always a heel commentator,
Yeah.
whatever that situation may be, to work off of each other. That's a better way of saying
Yeah.
that. Working off of
Yeah, I'm
each other
sorry.
and
I didn't hear. Oh, I was like, rip each
to
other?
work
Are
off
we
of
going
each
there?
other and really understand the quirks that you're working with, whether it's with Mike, what's with this or Kenny Cross, how that turns out to be, like how much does working each other really enhance the experience of watching a wrestling show as commentators?
I mean, to me, and to a lot of it's really important to know one who you're working with, uh, what how much passion do they have into it? And that's just a simple conversation you can have with that person, and how much of that you want to convey, and what you're looking forward to, because we also talk about that. When you riff off each other at that point, now you kind of start figuring out, or can tell when to pick up on what they're saying and run with that too, because a lot of what we say, you know a lot of all of what we say is really on the fly. We watch
Hmm.
what's going on, and if something pops in our heads and we say it, the other person can pick up on it and do something else with it. And that's the goal: is what else can you do with what's being said, and continue that catch and release. Um, but the relationship is important in order for you to understand how to do that. If you're just coming into it and you don't know anybody, it's fine. I mean, it's not a requirement for you to know a lot about that person, but you should be able to at least excuse me, at least have a conversation with them and figure out, where their head's at. Um, and enjoy each other's company, tell a few jokes, just to see how do you want to work off of each other. I've worked with other people that I've never worked with before, besides Kenny and Biss um, and Mike, and I've worked well with all of them. It's just a matter of, again, all right, my name is so and so. This is what I'm looking forward to. Let's talk about what matches do you want to really get invested in, and we go from there. That way, that when we get to that point, we now know, kind of have an idea, how much of ourselves are we putting into it, and how much of it are we going to have to really observe, listen, and focus on, so that we know how to use each other's words to not only share what's going on, but also to make it enjoyable for ourselves and the people around us who are listening, because as always, everybody's listening.
Would you be would you so we'll do it as an archetype. Would you be the storyteller commentator, or would you be the color commentator, making things more engaging for the people who are watching on streaming or on YouTube? Who would you be in that tandem? Would you be the storyteller, or would you be the color commentator?
I've done both. It
Oh,
depends
okay.
on what's
Which is
going on.
more?
Yeah.
What are you more comfortable with? That would be a
Um,
better.
it depends. It really does depend. It depends on what's going on, because I can't sit there and say I'm going to be the storyteller commentator, and then something happens. I'm going to say what happens. Um, but I have done both, where and sometimes we just switch off with each other, because
Okay, gotcha,
yeah.
gotcha.
So a lot of the folks that we watch, we've seen all over. Like, I've seen Dimitri everywhere I've gone, as a fan, as a worker. I've seen him, so I have an idea on what he does, why he does it, where the passion is coming from, what is his backstory, things like that. Because I watch a lot of Dimitri, or Casey Blackrose. I watch a
Yep.
lot of what Casey does. Stud, Rob. I watch a lot of their work, and sometimes it's also a matter of how much of that research have we done on our own. And then once we watch them in other things, like on YouTube or IWTV, we do sit down and say, okay, this is what I've seen of this person. This is what I know about
Mm.
them. This is what we found out. We share what information we would like to share. And then when the day of the show comes, that's when we fulfill that role. So a lot of the time, I do a lot of that research, and I share with my partners. And then as the match rolls on, sometimes I'm telling the story.
Mm.
Sometimes I'm filling in the backstory for that wrestler on what led to them being in this particular match. Sometimes I'm calling a couple moves here and there. And the person who is the face and the play by play is telling the story, because they also know a piece that I may not have realized, because they also have seen that person wherever they've been traveling. So it really depends on the wrestler, how much of them we know about, how much research have we done about them, what have we shared. Um, and then with all of that information we put together, when the match happens, who's quick on their feet to put it out there? If there
Mm.
is a situation where the wrestlers have both tired themselves out and they're both on the ground, then I can jump in and talk about what led to their desire to really be in that match, and what is their motivation to continue going, even though we can see right now that they're beaten down, the stamina's low. Uh, where is this fire coming from, and why are they still moving forward, being persistent and trying to chase this dream and make sure that they come on top?
Because
It really depends.
I was thinking too, like going into unfamiliar territory too, because you've done some ring announcing with Reality of Wrestling and with Phoenix Lucha. To go, and this time it's in ring announcing is a different animal altogether.
Yeah.
When it comes to being part of this wrestling show, to go into something unfamiliar with Reality of Wrestling, which is miles away. This is like might as well be WWE to it might as well be NXT 3.0 with what they're doing. With that unfamiliar surroundings, especially doing things in reality, how much were you able to adapt and really elevate the wrestlers when you do ring announce and doing all the research that you're doing that really help elevate the show that happened with the Phoenix Lucha and the Reality of Wrestling show that happened recently?
Well, the fact that there was a baseline there that I'm already familiar with, because I've already worked with Phoenix Lucha Libre, and I really enjoy working with them.
Okay.
Yeah, so I already know who they were. I've already worked with them. Um, so a lot of those wrestlers they know me, they see me.
Okay,
The
that's
fact
good.
that yeah, and the fact that for a lot of those luchadores, I talk to them in Spanish. I don't. Um, I make it easy for me to get the information, but I also make it easy for them to share. And so when it came to the joint venture with them both, it wasn't really hard to adapt because I already knew a lot of them. They already knew me. And with the Reality of Wrestling folks, I already knew a lot of them as well because I've seen them in other places. I've ring announced them in other places.
Oh,
I
okay.
know their backstory. Uh, Sometimes they have something really cool, so it really helps that I become a fan when they share with me, this is what I want. And I'll say,
Okay.
I love it. I'm gonna do it.
Done.
And I have an idea on how I want to do that. Yeah. And I'll even present them with the idea and they're like, let's go, let's do it. Yeah. So I just treat it as this is the job that I have to do. These are the people that I have to make sure I maintain the integrity of who they are when they come out and make sure that I, to the best of my ability, do the job well so that not only can the promotion be proud of it, but the individuals who are coming out before their match are also proud of it. It just made it even much cooler that it happened with Reality of Wrestling as well, and a promotion I really love working for in Phoenix Lucha Libre. So it really enhances the experience for me because I'm like, wow, this is so awesome. I get to do something I really love doing. I get to do it in both languages, which is even
Yeah.
better.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
because that's what I was doing all night was just code switching, just going back and forth between languages.
Trying to switch. It's like, what? Wait, turn off
Yeah.
the language, turn off the language, language translate for a second.
And
Because
there was a few times where I would when I walked in to prep that I was speaking to people in English in Spanish and I'm like, oops, sorry. Yeah.
I imagine talking to Ryan Davis like, oh, I am so sorry.
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Because now, especially with, I should have brought this up to be part of All Caribbean Wrestling. So I've had them on before.
Oh, cool.
What was it like to? I think you've done the shows in the Bahamas. Is that correct?
I did one. Yeah. I wasn't like performing. I was assisting in other duties, which also for me, like, uh, what I do that you can see on camera is just the tip of the iceberg, and the rest of it, there's other things going on underneath the surface. So, what I did there,
Oh,
yeah. So there's not a lot that you see underneath because I'm also working backstage doing other things. Uh, so when it comes to what you see on screen, finally, or in pictures on Instagram, that's the part that you get to see, and I talk about a good bit. Uh, but I also keep the curtain, shut and do other things back there. For All Caribbean, I was asked to assist with VIPs, which I did. The cool part
oh,
was of who I was assisting. and what the purpose of that was. So I wasn't doing commentary or anything there. I was just assisting them for that show because they had their roles to play, and I had to make sure that they were comfortable while they were doing that, and that they had all that they needed at the time to do what they were there to do, which is make sure that the fan experience was fantastic. And during the show, they were having a good time.
I will ask this though, because traveling internationally, and of course, whether it's commentary or even just helping out the VIPs, like to even travel internationally to pursue wrestling, did that mean a lot to you? Because you've been doing a lot of stuff here in Texas, but to go out into the Bahamas and like doing things outside of the United States, what was that like to say, oh my God, I'm actually traveling here to do what now in wrestling? What was
Yeah,
that like going
absolutely.
internationally?
I did, like I said, I did other things with them, but the fact that I got to go to a place that really hits close to home for me, because I'm Dominican by descent, and
Right.
like 100%, I love my country where my family's from, and the fact that there's a promotion that caters to the Caribbean was it made my heart sing, you
Okay.
know. So to be able to do something that was going to make wrestling accessible to that part of the world was just the best. It was not just the ICR. It makes you float on cloud nine to know that you were part
Hmm.
of that and got to do that to make sure that it's accessible to more people, especially those who you're part of. So when I get to travel and see wrestling outside of Texas, because I also went to watch wrestling in Puerto Rico with Lawe when they were active, and yeah, and
Oh.
I enjoyed the heck out of that because again, I'm watching wrestling through the lens of the Caribbean islands, and watching the excellence being shared in the ring, the athleticism, the strength, all of that, but to through people that now resonate with me. Because if you remember earlier, I said I didn't see a lot of females that resonated with me too much, and I did watch the males, but again, not a lot of them make me go, "Oh my god, that
Yeah.
person's," they're like me, that's what makes me like very passionate, because now I can say yes, that person, I can definitely go behind. One of the first wrestlers that I saw that I really was like that with was La Rosa Negra, because she's from Puerto
That was a
Rico,
deep cut.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and she comes across in a way that I'm very very familiar with. And
Hmm.
when All Caribbean came about, I was very, very familiar with the vibe that they were setting, because that is the type of vibe I grew up in. And I wanted to be part of that because in now wrestling, I'm now doing something I love doing, but now with the vibe that I know a lot about.
Because you see representation too. Because oftentimes, like, I'm gonna go to my own background because I never met a Filipino wrestler. I'm like, all right, cool. The Rock, not even that close. But like the rest of the time, I was like, all right, there's a storyline behind him. But I think with all Caribbean wrestling, especially because there's representation that not a lot of people get to highlight in
Yeah,
professional wrestling, and it's one
yeah,
of those things where, and I'm kind of like as I'm listening to it, that you knew you were part of something special
yeah.
within the confines of what you're doing during the show over in the Bahamas for sure.
But even with Phoenix, when I work with them, you feel that because now I'm doing wrestling, but I'm now doing it in a language that I grew up in, and I resonate with that as well. That doesn't mean to say that I don't resonate with other wrestling promotions, because there's also different things that they do that it really it touches, it touches your heart. But then when you have something that only does that but touches your soul as well in all
Hmm.
ways, then you're just like you're very into it. So with that, Lawe, All Caribbean, any wrestler that comes, who else? Marty Bell, she's Dominican as well.
Yeah.
Any wrestler that comes across like that, I'm like, oh my god, that is so cool. And WWE, when I start seeing Puerto Rican and Dominican wrestlers, I'm like, oh, that's so awesome. 100% behind them, and you want to be part of that much more, whether it's a fan, photographer, production, backstage, stage management, in the ring, commentate. You want to be part of it that much more. And when you are, then you want to make sure that you put your all into it, not just you're there to take
Yeah.
pictures and videos of yourself or this, that, or the other. You're there because they're here putting in as much passion as you want to put in
Yep.
to make sure that
Yep.
all of it looks good, you know?
For in your in for this year, do you have any milestones or goals that you would like to reach, or is there something that you really want to attain as the year goes on?
Um, that's a great question. Goals that I want to attain, or I mean, I was asked this before, and my response was, I don't put the marker there because if
Okay.
I do and I don't attain it, then then oh man, at the end the year's ending, I never got to do it. Um, my goal really is to have as much fun as possible while I do this, but at the
Mm,
same time, put the work and the attention to detail required, and if not more, to ensure that the promotion's happy and that the job that I put into it contributes to the excellence that they're trying to put out there. That's ultimately the goal. But in the short term, meet as many people as I can that really enjoy what they're doing, because
mm,
from there, when you're in that kind of a team, you really want to do it that much more and you want to do
yep.
it better. You want to put more time into it, more effort. You want to, I don't just sit around at home. I go to the gym too. If the wrestlers go to the gym and they work on their physique, why can't I? Because
Right.
I'm representing that company. I'm representing this person. When I say their name, I should also look the part and be my best as well. So those are the goals that I look to attain. That I want to make sure that I present myself well, that I respectfully uh, represent the company that I'm working for in a manner that not only they would be proud of to share. Yes, Dr. The Wife works for us, but also to show that when I do go out on their in their ring, or do I hold their mic or use their headsets, that they can trust that I am there to do the best job possible so that they come across in the vision and in the mission that they already had set in mind. Um, as far as like things like, oh, I want to meet so and so. Of course, all of us do. We
Yeah.
all want to
I
meet
mean,
the
who
yeah.
wouldn't?
Who wouldn't? Oh, do you want to? What if you get a contract? I'd sign it, I'd read it
Yeah.
first, but I'd sign it. It's a goal everybody has. But I also want to be realistic with myself and put goals
Mm.
in front of me that I can definitely celebrate, that so that when I do meet that famous person I've always watched, which I've met of quite a few, and I'm just like, wow, that is, that's
Must
phenomenal.
hold
Like,
on. Must
yeah,
hold
just,
on.
yeah, yeah. Like I got to interview Kurt Angle. I was like, wow, I watched this person on TV, and I am standing right next to him, asking him who his favorite Marvel character is. And now I'm geeking out because that's something I love to talk about too. So you know what I mean? I got to meet Sumi, and form a great relationship with her, and then um, and just so many others. I don't say to myself, I want to meet Sting now. I want to continue doing this as long as I possibly can and enjoy all of it. That's the goal. Just enjoy all of it. If I come across those famous folks, I can shake their hand and say, pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to
Mm.
be here. I thoroughly enjoyed myself, but also to the promotions that I come to. Thank you so much for letting me be here and being part of this. I enjoy contributing my skills to the excellence that you have provided here and the fantastic show that you are putting here for all the fans of X town, X county, wherever we are at the time. I just be proud of the fact that I got to do that, but also be grateful that I get to do that.
Mm. This is fun. Man, we got off a recording with with Waldo and Peace, but I was looking at the timer. I'm like, huh? What is
Yeah.
this? But
Like I said, I was like, we're gonna run into a rabbit hole if you do the technical or like this right here, because I could talk about this all day. I meet a lot
Oh
of
my,
people, and good, bad, or ugly, we are all here learning the same thing. Will we ever
yeah,
get to be the top of the top? Yeah, eventually everybody gets there. We just
yep.
take different paths to get there. But are we all going to do it the same way? Absolutely not. Should we? If you want to, sure.
Yeah,
But
it's the effort and the time to get to it.
right,
That's probably the
right.
thing, because I've had so many wrestlers that I spoke with, and they're all chasing the dream, but
Yeah.
the means to get to it is different. But you get to see where that light at the end of the tunnel is going to
Yes,
be, and it's unique for everyone to take that
it
journey.
is.
And next thing you know, you're like, oh, okay. Next thing you know, it took Brian Keith around 8 years of his life to be an overnight sensation. Look where he is now. So
Yeah.
it's like it's the same goal, but to get there is completely different.
Right. And I want to, in that process, I just want to enjoy the journey and all that it comes with it, because there's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of highs and lows, and you got to embrace all of it. And
Yeah.
that's what I want to do is, yeah, or I shouldn't say if, when I get there, right? I want to say that when I got there, I enjoyed the whole process getting to that
Mm-hmm.
point. If it was a bad moment, I learned from it, and I you know, may not have enjoyed that bad moment, but I learned a lot that would help me enjoy when the good moment comes along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Walda puts it. What did we learn? That's
Yeah,
gonna be
what did
stuck in
we
my head for the
learn?
next few weeks.
Yeah.
I'll close this. I'm going on a rabbit hole. Let's just let's let's get to our final question. I always ask this whenever we close our conversation, and Um, if you were in the same room as an adolescent version of Doctor the Wife,
Yeah.
you're in the same room, face to face, chair to chair, and you guys were there for a few minutes. What would you like to talk to her about?
Um, I was a very shy kid. I was
Okay,
a
no,
very
that's
shy
fine.
kid. So what I would probably tell them is, you will be fine. Everything will be fine. You will enjoy everything that life has to offer. So don't stress out in focusing on, I have to be this right here. I have to make it to this. And because life is going to do what it's going to do, and it's never a linear process. You're always going to have a
Mm,
left turn when you want to turn right. You're always going to have to go down when you want to go up. And then you're always going to have that stupid jug handle where you got to go all the way around and come
yeah.
back. So, my advice to my younger self, or anything that I would say, would be, you'll be fine. Just breathe, take it for what it is. And if it's not great, learn from it and move on. If it's fantastic, celebrate, learn from it, and see how you can apply so that the next moment is the best that it can be. But my mom would always tell me, every um every era that you live through is going to be a different experience, and you really should enjoy that era at the time that you're there. You know, and that's how I tried to keep it in my perspective. And that's what I would tell my younger self, who probably would need that advice, because there was a lot of moments. we we had our moments.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for having you on. I am tearing up. This is how long our recordings have been. But anyways, I have nothing left to give. You have the floor. And where can we find you?
You can find me on X, Threads, Instagram, Facebook, and out there. Come to a show, United 2-0, Hybrid School of Wrestling. I'm also at Soar Championship Wrestling. I can be found at Matt Ward Pro. I can be found in Houston, various places, Austin and Uncanny, United 2-0, of course. We're coming back in March 1st. And as well as New Texas. I've also made my appearances there. But I would say keep an eye on the socials, because I also put things there that I'm going to be at, whether I'm performing or I'm just going to go there and enjoy the show and say
There you go.
hello, because
So
I'm approachable. Come say hello.
That was nice. So, for those who are watching and listening on the Project Get to Know podcast, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will be right back on the next one. Bye.